Thank you, audience. We're going to have a great discussion in the next 20 minutes. And in fact, I'm going to kick off, jump straight in. Mohammed, can I ask you a question specifically around rare diseases? In the UAE and in the region more broadly, they represent a significant health burden. Could you help us understand the scale of the challenge that we have today?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to be part of these kind of panels at M42. So to answer your question, we know that rare disease is a burden within the region. That's something that is well known. I think the challenges were, what are those rare diseases, and what caused this let's say the amount of rare disease that we have. We always say we call them rare diseases, but they're not rare, to be honest, in the region. So they're more than just rare. So having a program just like the Emirati Genome Program that kind of allows us to know exactly how many patients that we have within the country that has certain rare diseases. And not only that, it tells us exactly what are the variants that are specific to our population that cause these kind of rare diseases. And now at the Department of Health, we're building a rare disease registry where we're going to make sure that we know exactly how many patients we have with rare disease and what are these rare diseases, what are the genes and what are the variants that are causing these rare diseases. And this will give us kind of like a head start relatively compared to other countries, where we will be able to not only diagnose or prevent at the beginning with premarital screening and newborn screening, but also find treatments that can be available as soon as a baby is born.
Fantastic. Mohammed, could you just comment on, do you sense that there will be unique variants here that are different from what we're going to see in
we've already seen some unique variants, and we've already seen variants that are, let's say, of unknown significance in other countries. However, in our population, there's a clear phenotype, and we know it's a pathogenic variant.
Paul, let me just add a comment to...
Please do, Albarah, jump in. Yeah.
I think to quantify some of the statements Dr. Mohammed mentioned, roughly 6% prevalence of rare diseases in the UAE, which is about 8-fold higher than the global standards. So that's really an impactful statement. But more importantly, if you look at the premarital screening findings, initial findings, and you're talking about thousands of couples here, we're seeing an 8% incompatibility rate on about 840 inherited rare diseases. Significant prevalence, but using the Emirati Genome Program, with the premarital screening, it's expected to reduce the potential for rare inherited diseases by up to 75% in the next generation.
In one generation?
In one generation, due to the fact of having a program that's so impactful like this premarital screening.
Exactly,
Fantastic.
But we don't want to miss the 25% left, so that's why we need to find treatments for them.
Gotcha.
As soon as
Very good. Albarah, could I just build on the comments you made, and could you just give us an insight into why it's so important to diagnose rare disease early?
The average diagnostic odyssey for rare diseases globally is 8 years. So we have actually one use case recently we were looking into, where a Emirati patient traveled the world, the best healthcare institutes everywhere around the world, to be diagnosed for a condition he had. Undiagnosed, misdiagnosed for 8 years. And then he came back to the UAE and he participated in the Emirati Genome Program, and we were able to diagnose him, and he was able to go on targeted therapy, which meant that he didn't have to do a kidney transplant. So that's one example. We expect the diagnostic odyssey to reduce by tenfold, purely because you've built a genomic baseline for every citizen from newborn all the way up to every age category. That genomic data is sequence once, used for life. So you're constantly reanalyzing every time, to Dr. Mohammed's point. New advancements, new variants are found. The bioinformatics team can describe that in a lot more detail. Novel findings to our population here, then you can continue to expand and reanalyze that baseline data set.
Fantastic. Thank you, Albarah. Ken, can I switch tack slightly and just ask you to give the audience some background on your role, the company that you work for, Everyone Medicines, and an indication of what you think the impact you could make in light of some of the comments from Albarah and Mohammed?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you very much for having me. This is my second visit to the region. I came in the end of January for Arab Health and attended a very similar program like this, and was frankly very, very impressed with the advancements, not only in the dialogue, but the connectivity and the full understanding of the value of whole genome sequencing to not just shortening the patient's diagnostic odyssey, which can be so many years in the making, but also being able to recognize that science is available to treat these kids. Our company, Everyone Medicines, was actually born out of an experience that our co-founder is a mother of a child that died at the age of 10 of Batten's disease, and a very rare variant of that disease. She took three years to discover that diagnosis with her daughter, and then found a researcher within Boston Children's who was able to develop an antisense oligonucleotide to treat her daughter within a 12-month time frame. The FDA approved that from a research perspective, not from an approval and a treatment perspective, but it set precedent. Now, the unfortunate thing is within the US, there is still a lot of antiquated efforts to try to actually get this kinds of treatment out to more and more children, because there is not broad screening done. In fact, newborn screening is not done in the US very often. In the UK, Genomics England has done this across hundreds of thousands of children, but whole genome sequencing to an adult population, even a healthy population, to try and find variants, I would say that the Middle East is leading the world, and certainly the UAE is leading the world. For what it's worth, I was attending a conference in Boston not too long ago, and George Church, who is the father of genomic research, said that there are two countries that are really leading the world in genomics research. It's the UK and the UAE.
That's fantastic to hear, Kent. Could I just ask you, would you just explain to the audience, maybe for those who are not familiar, what do you mean by ASOs, and what could be the implication here? And some of the comment that Mohammed made earlier is it's important to diagnose early, but also even more important to then link to the next step in the chain in terms of the possibility of treatment. I think with ASOs, you're talking about that possibility. Could you just give us a little bit more insight on that front?
Absolutely. I mean, the first step is always to be able to try to find that diagnosis, and I think that's the true value of the Emirati Genome Program, is it is a proactive search in being able to find the cause of disease. And ultimately, this is where medicine is going, beyond just the protein-based approach. An antisense oligonucleotide is basically a single-strand RNA that gives instructions to a protein to either do good or to do ill. It may, in some cases, be a genetic mutation that doesn't tell the protein to do anything. An antisense oligonucleotide as a technology has been around for 40 years. Spinraza for spinal muscular atrophy is probably the most successful antisense oligo to be approved across the world to date, and it's treated 20,000 children. To give you an idea of how quickly this science is moving, we thought there may be 4,000 or 5,000 kids in the world with that disease. 20,000 have been treated. So clearly rare is everywhere.
Not so rare.
And I think this is what's fascinating about the area is the science is not the question. We have the science. We have to be able to find the children that have these diseases and find them early.
And when you find them, the time frame, the impression that you get traditionally is it takes 15 years to develop a medicine. From what I understand with ASOs, that isn't the case.
That's the other fascinating part of this, is that you're right, between 10 and 15 years and multi-billions of dollars to bring a drug to market for most pharmaceutical companies, we can develop an antisense oligonucleotide in about 7 to 8 months. It costs it's an infinitesimally small investment, several millions of dollars to have a drug get through the testing phase and the sequencing phase. So we're working very hard with regulatory agencies as well as with regions across the world to not only find disease, but be able to find those variants that we can bring in antisense technology for and do it in short order.
Thank you so much, Kent. That's a great insight into the potential opportunity. I'll come back to you again. Tiago, can I bring you into the discussion? From your bioinformatics perspective, you've been here from the early days with regard to this, one of the largest genome programs anywhere in the world. Can you just comment on how that links into the agenda that we're painting here, and from your perspective, how you and your team can bring value to the mix?
Yeah, so I think that it fits all the pieces, right? And I start here, which is the end. So I start with the end, which is, can we get patients? Can we get them quickly? Can we enroll them? Can we bring drugs to them? This is the man to do that. This is the man to put it all together and to oversee and to, bring it. This is the man that can do the drug, and I am the man that discovers the people that need help, right? What's incredible in this region is that everything is ready, and the pieces are there, right? And I think even the cluster that the DOH has discussed yesterday, I think it was yesterday the announcement, brings all the pieces together, right? And so I think that putting all those pieces together is within reach, which is incredible. I mean, we are talking about having a full population sequenced here, right? And that makes it another level, right? And then you bring the advancements of drugs, diagnostics, regulation, getting these patients quickly, bringing them the drugs, and the work that you're alluding to. I mean, I remember being in the American Society of Human Genetics, where they showed this. I mean, the old audience was like, "Oh my God, how is this possible? Batten disease in less than a year, right?" Now imagine that you identify all the patients. You can bring them, regulator and the government is pushing this forward. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the potential to bring it all together is extraordinary.
Fantastic. It speaks to this ecosystem play that I think is so powerful and that we have an opportunity to capitalize on.
I didn't mention Albarah, but of course he'll be very important in all of this as well, right?
You didn't mention me either, Tiago.
You saying, Tiago.
Islam, can I bring you into the conversation? From your perspective, would you just give us an insight into what role you play in terms of what Iros, the interface that Iros has into this agenda? I mean, Tiago's indicated where you add value, but just give us a bit more flesh on that.
Thank you a lot, Paul. So I will take it that I mentioned that yesterday even. We are lucky to be part of this because if you check, one of the top reasons of the failure of any clinical trial is not finding the right cohort of participants. And this is crazy. So you can have the right drug, you can have the right setting, and not finding the right patient, this will make the failure. So programs like the EGP, pharmacogenomics, the premarital screening is helping us to make sure that this is the right fit for any clinical trial. And what we make us happy related to this and during the clinical trial, even if we cannot help to find the treatment, at least we can help with stopping the progression of a certain disease. Take, for example, Alzheimer's disease. If we doing the identification from the Emirati Genome Program related to ApoE4 genes, at least what we can do for those people, we can do prevention. We can stop the progression of the disease. So I believe programs like this will help us as a CRO, even as Iros, to find the right cohort, even to bring innovative clinical trial to the country here and bring medications and therapies for those people that were identified in early stages. And this will make us providing not only hope for them, but also stop any progression related to certain disease.
Got you. Thank you so much. Mohammed, can I bring you back into the dialogue and just to comment on, from your DOH perspective, how do you look at the regulatory environment to support these tremendous innovations that can clearly have a huge impact on patients? There needs to be, I think, some flexibility, some innovation in the way that you think about this, because these are, in some cases, they're going to need new rules, new requirements, new ways of thinking. Would you mind just sharing with the audience the perspective you have from your DOH perspective on that?
Well, one of the things that we always brag about at the DOH is that we are agile, and we mean it. We're very agile, especially with the new treatments that are coming out. So gene therapies, ASOs. I know they're not new, but new in a clinical setting.
Yeah.
So these kind of treatments, we know that they need to be personalized. We know that we need to manufacture those per person and making sure that every person is getting the right treatment for them. And going through the traditional clinical trials that has been seen for a while now, it's just going to take 15 years for every patient to get there to receive their drug, and that's something that we don't really want to see here. What we were thinking of is that having a platform. So if one platform can go through a clinical trial, and then once that platform is approved, then just plug and play different genes, different cassettes, or different diseases for every patient. That's the model that we are looking for, and that's what we are planning to go ahead for now. And I can clearly see that there are some countries around us are doing the same thing. They're moving towards it, and I think that is the way moving forward with all the advancements that are happening in gene therapy. Like you can see the advancements every day. Whereas like the past 10 years, it was like every 5-10 years. So we need to be able, as a regulator, to accommodate as many of those treatments, not only treatments, new diagnostics tools within our healthcare system.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Ken, can I ask you to comment on what you just heard? And put it in the context of the global agenda that you're trying to drive for your organization. And is that the normal response that you hear from a regulator?
Not at all. In fact, I'm going to give you a tremendous compliment from the perspective that that's the most forward-thinking comment I've heard from a regulator across the entire globe. That is exactly the kind of thinking that needs to be implemented in this space. You think about that rare disease, you are not able to conduct a clinical trial in a traditional setting. Even if you were to conduct a clinical trial, it would take too long, and you would have majority of the patients with that condition likely die before the drug even comes to market. Getting regulators to actually think along the lines of a platform-based approach where you're approving the chemistry such that then you have turnkey approvals for the next drug to bring to market for the sense of urgency to help a child that's dying of disease. My compliments, sir. My compliments.
Thank you, Kent. Albarah, can I bring you in as we bring this discussion to a close? We've got a couple of minutes left. If this kind of thing works, what implications will it have for the way that we treat rare disease in this country?
I think our strategy and vision has always aligned with the Department of Health on how we can democratize this type of information to allow us in real time to affect our citizens. And that could be preventing disease in the clinical aspects, but more importantly, if we have this disease burden, is to precisely treat these. So I think this is a treasure trove of information that is very unique to the UAE and the Emirati Genome Program, because you have most population health genome programs look at specific cohorts and then apply both R&D, public health policies on that specific cohort. We have a population genome program, but we also have a personalized genome program for every single citizen. That is the key differentiator of the Emirati Genome Program to any other PopGen. And I think having access and integrating this data and having an agile regulator who's able to see the value in quickly using this data set for treating rare diseases, for treating any other or risk stratification or whatever it may be, prevention, predictive and precision care, is critical to how we progress. But it serves the purpose of the life science strategy, because now our colleagues here on the right who are interested in this treasure trove of information, access to patients, agile regulations, clinical trials, will start now bringing these therapeutics to this part of the world, allowing this part of the world to be a global hub when it comes to life sciences, allow us in the UAE to serve the region and beyond, and truly taking the information that this small program that started the Emirati Genome Program global, based on the information and the localization of life sciences and biotech within the UAE.
Ken, please comment.
If I could just underscore that, I would say that this panel and the discussion that we're having is so much more forward-thinking that you're going to find in other countries across the world. And I've met with leaders as well as regulatory agencies across the globe. This is a catalyst for change, and this is an opportunity, I think, for UAE as well as the region to lead the world.
And on that wonderful note, I thank you for your engagement. We'll bring this discussion to a close. Could you please put your hands together for a wonderful panel?